Hello y'all, welcome back to another video. I am Nobodium and I'm reading Markiplier from North Korea. We're going to read chapter 6 and 7. Let me fix my camera. My recording did not begin. I'm going to make sure it began this time. And I was like halfway through chapter 7, but I'll reread it for y'all. Markiplier parents get married. Our wedding took place in a small church in Cincinnati, Ohio on December 24th, 1986. All of the guests were members of Mr. Fishball's family. His parents, 2 sisters, their spouse, and their children. At that time, I was 3 months pregnant with my first child, and my pregnancy was already showing. I was standing next to Mr. Fishbach wearing my white wedding gown. During our wedding ceremony, I was so overcome by emotion that I could not help but quietly tear up. My tears were from mixed emotions, which I could not pinpoint. That day I became Miss Fishbach. From then on, I started calling Mr. Fishbach by his first name, Cliff. A week after the wedding, I was seen and examined by a midwife at the maternity clinic that Cliff had chosen. Since I was young and inexperienced mom-to-be with a language barrier, I followed Cliff's plans exactly. Actually, we were both naive about having a baby, although Cliff diligently studied how to be a first-time parent by reading maternity books. When I arrived at the midwife clinic on my first day, they showed us a beautifully wallpapered room with matching floral patterned bedding and curtains. Reminding me of the Sears catalog, the entrance of the walls of the clinic were covered with pictures and blissfully smiling mothers after the birth. Holding their tightly wrapped newborns, I was excited about having my first child in such a beautiful surrounding. In July 1987, I was 2 weeks overdue with the clinic. Decided to induce me. My midwife stayed with me the whole time, helping me throughout the labor process. Remembering that my mother had naturally delivered all her children at home, I believed that a natural birth was the only option. I did not know at the time that there were other options available until I became an RN several years later. After enduring more than 13 hours of torturous pain, my first son, Jason Thomas, was born on July 28, 1987. And there's a nice picture right there of her holding a Jason right there. I really do enjoy, they include pictures. They're not scared to show their lives. And that's one thing that Markiplier has done very well, and I'm glad his mom kind of does that in the book, is that they're not scared to kind of bring us into their life by telling us all the fine details, as we'll get in chapter 7. There's some details, they didn't have to put in, but they did, the history of Korea. That was really interesting, and the pictures of, family members. And I know that they had to work really hard to get some pictures, and I'm glad that they did that extra mile, because they could have just simply wrote text and maybe did some Google stock photos and they would have been perfectly fine, but it works out really well, and that's what's amazing. Chapter 7, moving to Hawaii. Chapter 7, Thomas was 7 months old when we moved to Oahu, Hawaii for Cliff's new assignment, working in the Schofield Barracks. When we landed in Oahu, I thought I had landed in paradise. I was surprisingly welcomed by the warm ocean breeze and beautiful, sweet-smelling flowers. The population was made up of many different ethnic groups, including a large population of Koreans. Cliff, Thomas, and I enjoyed the convenience of living there. We loved to shop in the Korean grocery and eat at the Korean restaurants. Best of all, I enjoyed watching free Korean TV programs. A few weeks after my arrival, I was hired to work at a military dental clinic as a civilian dental assistant. The work was fun and easy, and the pay was more than satisfying. I started to enjoy my life in Hawaii. However, in July of 1988, when Thomas was 1 year old, I experienced something that would change my life once again. One morning, I woke up with a severe headache. I seldom had headaches because I did not smoke or drink. I could not figure out the source of them. My headache continued until that afternoon. At that point, I asked Cliff to drive me to the military clinic to be examined by a doctor. After being examined by an older military doctor, I was told to stop my birth control pills that I had been taking faithfully after Thomas' birth. Kindly, the older doctor explained, that my high blood pressure was the main cause of my headache. He further advised that the most common side effect of birth control pills was hypertension. After I told him my fear of becoming pregnant again, the doctor was knowing and smiled, handed me his written prescription, and told me to fill it up at the pharmacy before we got home. We drove back home carrying a full bag filled with a life supply of condoms and spermicide. After stopping my birth controls pills, I carefully followed the doctor's order to use the new methods to prevent a pregnancy. Matter of fact, we used condoms and spermicides together to be sure that I wouldn't conceive. But as I have heard before, what was meant to happen will happen, which seemed to always be true in my life. The same month, I realized that my very on-time menstruation did not happen. After anxiously waiting for a few more days, Cliff and I decided to do a home pregnancy test. Both of us were dumbfounded as the test strip showed a bright neon blue, indicating that yes, I was pregnant again. I was in total shock. It was beyond my comprehension how one tiny sperm could successfully slam through two barriers and reach my egg cell to form a new life. In direct contrast to my disappointment, Cliff would not hide his proud smiles. For a few weeks, I was in foul mood and unable to accept my unexpected pregnancy. One early Sunday morning, I opened my eyes and was greeted with bright rays of sunshine. As I walked to my window, the birds were singing loudly. At that moment, my heart suddenly knew that everything happened for a reason and I was going to be okay. I started accepting my miraculous conception. My euphoric feelings continued the entire morning as Cliff and I were eating breakfast. Without hesitation, I told Cliff that we needed to visit a church that day. Since I had never been to a church service in my life, my request surprised Cliff. Without any protest, Cliff found a Yellow Pages book and started to look through the listing of churches. After a few minutes of searching, Cliff pointed at the picture of a nearby church. The picture showed a small Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church in the town of Wahioa, near the Schofield Barracks in Oahu. After our breakfast, our family dressed and drove to the church. We had chosen an hour earlier. It didn't take more than 10 minutes to arrive at the small parking lot of the church as we stood looking at a very humble church in front of us. Out of nowhere, a middle-aged woman appeared and walked directly toward us. Immediately, I saw her big, bright smile and noticed her thick Hawaiian accent. She introduced herself to us as Catherine. While she escorted us into a tiny church, as we stepped inside, I saw fewer than a handful of people sitting in pews. We became the center of attention. All of their heads turned toward us as they welcomed us and warm smiles. So from that day, every Sunday morning, we attended the Baptist church service throughout my pregnancy. I was entering my second trimester of pregnancy when one day during the church service by Minister Bob, I suddenly became overcome with a desire to be baptized. Holding Thomas and Cliff's hands, I walked to the front of the church and we all knelt down in front of the cross where Minister Bob stood as he invited us to be baptized. The following week, our family arrived at church ready for our baptism. The week before, Minister Bob had chosen a nearby beach on the Pacific Ocean for their traditional total immersion baptism. Minister Bob was waiting at the ocean bank, and the church congregation watched nearby while they prepared a potluck meal with food they had brought from their homes. The following week, Catherine presented me with a surprise gift. Without my knowledge, she had captured a precious moment of my baptism with her camera. I was very grateful when she gave me the picture she had taken. I have several pictures to share. In front of the Baptist, holding Thomas during our first visit, Hawaii 1988. And yes, my cat, she's got to be like one of them. She's horny right now, but also at the same time, I swear she just likes rubbing her body against these. Then we got this one with Baptist church members in Hawaii 1988. Oh my God. Vivian. And this one is Sunak and Cliff's baptism at Hawaii, Haliwa, Beach by our pastor in Hawaii, January 8th, 1989. Okay, Vivian, I love you. I love you so much. Look, if you want to be in the video, you can say hi to the people. They're right there. Just say hello. She goes stiff when you pick her up. She's a bit weird though. And then there's some other pictures. This is probably Markiplier. Look at that fat body. We know that's Markiplier. And there's a little cut. I like how they include this drawn version. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna do today. I just wanted to read a few chapters just to continue on. But yeah, if you liked this video, bomb that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the next one.